Coming up on the November 4th edition of Kelly and Company, we're going to chat today with Arnold Cheng of Spectrum Ability about his experience designing the Calgary Event Centre. And JJ Hunt throws back to Halloween, celebrating it while traveling with stories of staying at an Irish youth hostel and upscale Mexican condos. Wow, that sounds fun. But doing it while living out of a backpack. All today on Kelly and Company.
This is Kelly and Company.
Thank you for being with us, ladies and gentlemen, as we rock into another week on the program. You're checking us out on YouTube, maybe the podcast. Subscribe if you haven't done that. Or, of course, on AMI Audio, where you can hear us several times a day as we repeat every 6 hours on the network. Glad to have you. Glad to have you, Ramya Muthan, joining us as co-host on the show today. How are you?
Not bad. How are you? It's been a very relaxing weekend. I'm looking forward to a week of shows, though. I'm getting really excited on Sunday nights now.
Are you?
Everybody, for the week of shows ahead. It's because it's shorter. I think that's the biggest thing.
But you're involved in a few different things, and I think that makes life always pumps it up. You know, you kind of get into your rut, and no matter what you're doing, I know some people probably think, you guys get into a rut. Well, you get into the routine. It's still going to work. You still have those days where you're on and days you're not. And I feel for change, as they say, is always a good thing.
Variety is the spice of life. Let's just throw in all the cliches.
Speaking of, one of the things that we were concerned about coming up at the end of August were some changes that we were planning, that we're going to take out our veterinarian from our program. But since we are now available to everyone on YouTube, on AMI Audio, and of podcasts, we are lucky to welcome back our Dr. Danielle Jongkind as she joins us and will every couple of weeks here on the program. Danielle, celebration, 8 years on the show with just a slight break in the routine. You are back.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
I like that. That's a really good woohoo.
And we've even put you under wellness, Danielle. We have these buckets for the show, and we're like, human-animal bonding, that's under wellness. So nice.
It is definitely under wellness. I can get behind that.
Yeah, of course.
So we're going to call your segment like we have. Dr. Danielle Jongkind, of course, and Ask-a-Veterinarian as you return. And we'll do this every other Monday when you will bring us often useful information, as you always do, on important topics. Sometimes working in the veterinarian profession, however, and this is your first topic today with us, one that's, I don't want to say a head scratcher, but one that we like to say may boggle the mind or make one say, wow. These are odd situations that you probably won't find yourself in with other professions, is what you're going to be covering with us today. Could the big question, veterinary medicine, be the right profession for you? Because we know, as we talked about spice of life, but also speaking of all these cliches, the best medicine, folks, is laughter, right? So let's get some inspiration from a famous comedian and find out if this is really the case. Danielle, which comedian are we taking that inspiration from?
Well, I thought when we were going to, come back after a bit of a break, we should, do something fun the first day. I mean, nobody wants to dive into like serious stuff, right off the bat. So, we're gonna take a bit of an inspiration from my husband, who has a deep love for stand-up comedians. And
Oh,
one of his favorites is a guy named Jeff Foxworthy. And
okay.
he particularly likes his "You might be a redneck" routine. So if you don't know,
Has he ever wanted to do stand up, or is he just totally the watcher?
no. He
He'd
would
never do it,
never
eh?
do stand-up, no. But he loves to
That's
watch
the
it.
wife's confidence in him.
Yeah,
No,
Danielle's like,
he'd
absolutely
never.
not.
No, don't get me wrong. My husband is a very funny guy, but he's not an ostentatiously funny guy. He doesn't like to stand up in front of people and be funny. He's not a clown, right? But
Oh, that's awesome. But around the breakfast table,
Hot
yeah.
takes from Danielle, though.
The truth on here.
I
Oh
know.
man. Okay. Okay, Danielle. So then, with that being the case, and those positions, and we've had you talk in the 8 years in so many different ways on different areas of the profession. I mean, from the as we had Halloween last week, and we always reflect on the gross, scary, whatever you want to call it of it. So now we're going to get into the Okay, let's take your angle on this. We'll follow your lead.
Well, if you don't really know this routine, it's basically Jeff Foxworthy monologuing the symptoms that you should watch for in yourself to know if you might fall into his redneck stereotype. So, we actually did a parody of this routine many years ago on the show now, but today I'm just going to do a bit of an updated version. So I'm calling it You Might Be a Veterinary Professional Part 2.
Oh,
Nice. All right.
the
So
sequel.
that's right, the sequel. So here we go. Um, so the first one is, if you've ever had to explain to a client that your pager did not fall out of their mare with the placenta after a foaling, it's on the ground because the clip broke and it fell out of your pocket, you might be a veterinary professional.
Danielle, how do you explain these things without a
Pardon
person
me?
saying, "Huh? What? You think I what? Oh, you think I'm that? Oh, it did."
We thought what about where the pager came from?
Well, when you're doing a foaling as a veterinarian or a calving or anything like that, you're physically pretty close to the
Yep.
animal. And
Uh-huh.
when the clip on your pager breaks and it falls to the floor with all of the other stuff coming out of the back of the animal, I mean, you can see from a client's perspective how they might go, "Did that come out of my mare?" No.
Yeah, the
It
confusion.
came out of my pocket.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh
That's
god. Toilet paper
Would
amazing.
calling.
never
No, no, not
happen
quite.
in any other profession.
No.
Talk about mixing things up. Oh my gosh, what a recipe, even a pager.
That's right.
Was this a personal circumstance, by the way, Danielle?
It definitely was, yes. Most of
Oh
these are
my.
actually.
Okay, what do you have else for us?
Well, if you have not purchased a ballpoint pen in 25 years because they are given away free by company reps and at continuing education conferences, you might be a veterinary professional.
That's a good one. That's a good
I have
one.
a
Yeah.
feeling that's in the broadcast industry too. How many times you shake hand with that, or here, sign here, and oh, I just keep the pen. So wow, that's really great. That's treasure
I
hunting
actually
at its
thought we were
best.
gonna bring up stealing pens and not
Yeah.
giving people's favorite pens back and such, because that has come up on the show for sure.
Mhm. It's like a
Oh,
treasure
Danielle's
hunt,
yeah.
never,
right?
like,
Yeah.
outright, admitted to taking other people's pens, but, you know.
Wait till
No,
they come
but
back and
the
want it.
people that work with me may have other thoughts, right?
Sure. Exactly.
Especially the ones that are given a special pen. Okay.
Yep. Well, if your family Christmas party involves delivering baby animals in the barn for your relatives, you might be a veterinary professional.
Are we calling that a party?
No, a personal favor. It's a personal favor you're calling in, right? Well, you are family. Can we put you, sir? Some people get it when it comes to other professions, but there you go. That's
There you
getting
Yeah.
real
have it.
personal. Yeah.
It's a good symptom. It's a good symptom.
Do
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have any
Well, another
memories of,
one,
do you have any specific memories of what animals were delivered on Christmas Day?
Oh, I knew we were going to go there.
I don't know if my relatives would want me to say.
Did you have to follow the North
Oh,
Star too to get there?
No.
fine. We plead the fifth.
All right.
Make it off easy for all of them, Danielle. Okay.
Yeah,
No.
that's it.
No.
You can plead it on this one because it might get you into trouble. So,
Yeah.
according to the American law, plead the fifth.
That's right. Well, another one, if you lapse into speaking medicalese with your spouse's physician and your spouse has to ask you, what was it that they said afterwards? You might be a veterinary professional.
Oh, that's a great one. I think that's
I'm
true.
kind of
My cousin recently graduated from med school, and like having him with another doctor, neither of them are vets, but having both physicians in the room together, the rest of us are just like, whoa.
huh? What
It's
language are you
it's
guys
different.
speaking,
Yeah,
by the way? Where's the
Exactly.
interpreter?
it's true. It happens.
And people stand there, right, Danielle, with the blank face while you're, doing it. Sorry, not to keep you out of the conversation, not to omit you, but
Thank God you're
Yeah.
here to give us some lessons on medicalese, though. Once in a while, we get tips.
Well, yeah, and we can go away and sound
Yeah.
like a big shot because we understand it, or we might be able to speak tiny bit of just for at least 30 seconds,
Just enough to
veterinarian, just
understand
enough
that
that,
it's medicalese. Yeah.
oh, you do know what we're
Yeah.
talking about. Sure I do.
Well, it's important to know, right?
It is.
Mhm.
It is, or appear to. Okay.
Yeah. Well, if you can't watch those emergency room medical dramas on TV because it drives you nuts that they manage to resuscitate almost every single person who needs CPR, you might be a
Oh,
veterinary
come
professional.
Wow.
on. That's
Wow.
part of the plot.
I know.
Well, and that's
Where
a
would
little
we
further
be if
than
they didn't?
and that's a little further than the person that watches TV, the PA, who assists on productions. Oh, you can see the microphone hanging there. Oh, you can, who calls all those things. This is a little more like, oh my gosh, talk about how frustrating or how debilitating when you say, geez, I wish I had that much luck in my profession. So on a serious side, Danielle, do those kinds of thoughts, like have you at conferences, do you guys get into conversations, you and other vets, that God, man, it can make you feel bad even though it's, let's pretend it's TV. Like it would almost make you wonder.
Yeah.
I
I mean, I
lost
think
you.
it. Oh, we still hear you.
There, yeah, you're
So
still
we'll
there,
figure it out.
Danielle. It would really make you
Anyway,
wonder
yeah.
or feel bad.
I think that
I'm
most
sorry.
people
Yeah, I
have.
lost you for just a second. I missed everything you just said.
Oh, okay. I was just saying that, it's sort of like the stuff on TV when people point and say, "Oh, the microphone." I can see that if they work in broadcasting. But on a serious note, does
Nitpicking.
it ever make you feel a bit depleted in the sense of, "Hey, man, this is not real." It leads a false sense of reality with the profession watching these shows. That kind of make you either frustrated, angry, or just feel bad overall.
Well, I think, a lot of professions kind of get into this with TV.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband used to be a volunteer firefighter and he would watch, those like dramas with like emergency services and firefighting stuff. And he would roll his eyes at some of that stuff too. So
Mhm.
I'm sure
Yeah.
that, that mine isn't the only profession who runs into that.
I would think not.
Of
Wow.
course.
Wow. But it
It's just
just
when you
must be
start making like either reality TV or, medical dramas is such a huge popular thing. I'm sure so many people in the medical industry is just like, we can't do this. Or, you
yeah.
go on Reddit and then you air your grievances.
Well,
I'm
it
not a
also be
Reddit person,
individual.
but yeah.
Yeah, and it
But
would
yeah.
be individual because everybody has different experiences, and somebody might just have that terrible luck or be going through a bad time where these things are happening to them, and they watch a show and it
Mhm.
would like, holy man, maybe I better get out of the business. Like, even though it's
Yeah.
a show, it could work on you. Wow. All right, Danielle. Next thing.
Well, if you know that it is actually possible for a dog to swallow an intact cob of corn whole because you've
Ooh,
seen it before on an X-ray, you might be a veterinary professional.
yikes!
1000%. Anyways, I can't tell you why I know that, but
Oh, oh my gosh.
it
And here
is
I think
possible.
constrictors that could take down a cow, the ones in Africa, that's wild enough, let alone just your pet at home going, go, hey, how did that zoom and it's gone?
Where did the
Wow.
cob
Yeah.
go? Yeah.
Oh, oh my
We're
gosh.
not
That
gonna
would make you
incriminate
stay
any
a lot
dogs
more.
here. No further
No, are you?
commentary.
What about that guy over there?
We
He
can't
will
say.
not, he'll
We
never
can't
admit
say.
to doing it. No,
We
no,
will
no.
neither confirm nor deny the cob
Yeah,
story.
yeah. Even if
He
Danielle
works
was
for
the
the
witness.
CIA.
Exactly. If you were the witness, Danielle, the puppy would be wanting to say lies, lies, and poppycock. Never happened. All right. Anything else, Danielle?
Let's do one more.
Well, um, if you know that isopropyl alcohol has the best chance of removing the smell of anal gland secretions from your hair until you can get
Oh.
home to wash it, you might be a veterinary
Oh,
professional.
from your hair.
Yeah,
That was a
because
plot
Yep.
twist.
somebody has to be there to have their back and scream, duck. I don't know if you could duck
Oh,
fast enough, though, could you, Danielle?
gross. Does it
Sometimes you
spray?
can't. Well, yeah, because when you evacuate anal glands, the secretions are under a little bit of pressure, and I habitually
Oh
hold
my.
a piece of Kleenex in my hand so that doesn't happen. But if somehow it manages to escape past the Kleenex. Sometimes those things get distance and they end up in places you really don't want
Second
them.
line of
Oh.
defense, Danielle, your hair. Oh, and I like the way you say evacuate. It's just such a more politer than us saying, "What's up, squirt?" Ew.
Kelly.
Gross.
Oh gosh. Oh, I make it so appealing. I know, Danielle. Any one other thing, or is that enough?
Well, if you can't stand the thought of eating sushi or rare beef because you know all too well what diseases and parasites could theoretically be in it, you might be a
Whoa.
veterinary professional. And on a related note, if your children complain that their dinner needs sauce because you overcook everything on purpose, you might be a veterinary professional.
Oh,
We should have
wonderful.
kept that one on the table. I love sushi. I don't wanna think about the diseases and parasites. Danielle?
All the anti-sushi people are loving you today. They're saying, "Good, yes, yes, turn
No.
them all
That's
off
why I
of it.
said last one. That's why I
I
said
don't want to
last one
watch people
before.
eat it." Oh, wow.
Uh,
Oh, Danielle,
let's
go ahead.
pretend.
Yeah.
Well, the last one that I have is if you have ever told your own physician that you have pain in your right hind foot, you might be a veterinary professional.
That's
Your
kind of just a
right
slip, right? Just
hind foot.
because, yeah, because you're so used to telling it. Oh my
That's
goodness.
amazing. Oh, that's so fun.
That's your
Well,
day-to-day
Kelly and
8
I are not
hours, right?
veterinary professionals.
That's right. So now
Well,
you know the
Danielle,
symptoms.
yeah, especially in our right hind foot.
Yes.
Don't they call that phantom limb pain? Thanks, Danielle.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. Danielle Jongkind, of course, wonderful to have her back here on Kelly and Company and on the program. Monday, she'll be with us every other Monday for Ask a Vet. That's Dr. Danielle Jongkind. You can email us, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions or things you want us to maybe even talk to our contributors about or bring up as a topic. kellyco@ami.ca, please. Would love to hear from you. Okay. So did you have a favorite from those? Was there one that just jumped right out at you?
The anal gland secretion is kind of
Of
gross,
course.
man. That one's disgusting. Thanks for following that up with sound effects, by the way. That's always
I,
leaves a mark.
I, well, you know what's interesting? It's funny because I think of, when we talk about surgeries and tools being left in human beings. And when she talked on our
Yeah.
first one about, the pager falling on the ground,
Yeah.
and you just, oh, where did that come from? Oh my gosh, when did he ingest that? The fear you would give somebody, the
I
panic.
know, and
Like,
Danielle, she never holds back, right? Like
no,
she's talked
no, those
about going
descriptions are
shoulder
great.
deep into the anus of a cow or whatever, like, the most horrifying things you could get involved with as a veterinarian, and she's definitely stealing pens. I couldn't say it while she was
Um,
still here, but
Would you go? No, for sure. Of course. Like, come on. I'm sure she goes to those conferences or when someone, here, you got to sign here. You just keep a hang on to the pen and chases them
that's
out.
my
Hey,
favorite
you've got
pen.
my pen still.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you do that as an April Fool's joke to somebody, like the pager thing? Maybe not necessarily a pager, but drop something that the person might scramble. Oh my God, when
I
did he
think that
swallow that?
would
Oh,
yeah, that's a fair point. I would definitely. I also, we haven't done enough with her about how many or what kinds of things that they've actually pulled out of animals. It could be kind of sad as well, like going into those stories, but the corn on the cob made me think, like, what else are animals swallowing, like our pets?
and how? Like,
And
like
how?
like sometimes you get your arm caught in something, like you reach down, say behind a couch or something, to get something, and you're trapped
Yeah.
for a moment. You have to find the right way to wriggle your wrist or arm out, and you just think, is that what happens when a dog, oh, I better grab that quick, Shoom, and somehow it finds the magic route to go
Hmm.
and down and in. Like, you just wonder, how the heck does that happen? So really interesting
And
stuff.
so
Danielle will be with us every 2 weeks on the program.
we're going to move on and talk about something cool going on in Calgary. So, located in downtown Calgary, the new Scotia Place will be the new premier sports and entertainment venue in Alberta. It sounds really, really exciting. There's a lot of activity going on around accessibility as well. So, we are going to talk about the accessibility features included in the brand new venue with Arnold Cheng. He is the founder of Spectrum Mobility, and Spectrum Mobility is an accessibility accessibility consulting firm based in Vancouver, whose motto is take control of your accessibility. Good. Very empowering. Arnold, it's nice to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Looking forward to chatting with you. You're a friend of Amy Amanti, and she helped us get you on the show. But we love the slogan, right? What does
Hmm.
Spectrum Ability do uh, around this motto of getting people and getting companies to take control of their own accessibility? And how does that fit in with the accessibility ventures and things you got going on with this premier sports and entertainment venue in Alberta?
Yeah, so the idea of taking control of your accessibility actually came from discussions with our clients. So our clients are mainly property managers and architects. So when they design or plan or operate a place that has accessibility features or accessibility challenges, they're always wondering, like, well, we sometimes get complaints about this and we have no idea what to do about it. Like they feel clueless and kind of helpless. And I'm like, you know what? You can take control of it. Here's how. And that's kind of what we do. And for the Calgary Event Centre, otherwise known as Scotia Place, we were one of the two consultancies that provided the feedback for the architects on how to make it friendlier for hockey fans and other people who want to use it.
When
Wow.
did that start, that collaboration for
Oh, it
Spectrum
started very
Ability?
recently. Oh,
Oh,
yeah, it
okay.
started very recently. It started in mid-August, I believe, and the whole process on our part for the first round, at least, we don't know if there'll be a future one, took 2 weeks, and it was just go go go. So we looked at the arena from the floor area where the locker rooms are for all four Calgary teams that'll be playing there. Has an attached community rink, which will be the practice facility for the Flames and the Wranglers and the Hitmen, and also it'll be open to the public as well when it's not in use. And we also looked at how we can make it more community focused as well. So you can hold events and tournaments and anything else you want to hold in there.
Wow. Arnold, have they brought you guys in at the right time? Don't know where they are in the whole process. Maybe you can fill our national audience in about that so we kind of understand where a lot of time in the disability community we're saying, oh, they brought us in after and there's only so much that can be done. Or can you talk to that? And that there's two companies working on the discussion piece. Is one company kind of in charge of one aspect of accessibility while the other's in charge of the other?
Yeah, I can't really speak for what the other folks are doing because
Right.
I'm not privy to that, but at the same time, for a project of this scale, there's also always going to be one or two firms doing what normally would be one job. So there'd be
Right.
multiple
Because it's
architectural or
massive.
engineering firms. Yeah, it's a $1 billion project, basically.
Yeah.
In terms of whether we were brought in at the right time, it really does depend on how good your architect is. Like, I've seen projects where the architect knows nothing and don't know what to do. At that
Mhm.
situation, maybe we should be in there right at the start. But if the architecture firm is decent, what tends to happen is that they know what the requirements are and they know more or less what to do to get things going. But what they're missing is they're often missing that best practice approach. So they know legally what to do. But at the same time, they're like, well, that's what it says on paper. We actually bring in the experience because I'm a wheelchair user myself. I bring in the experience and things I hear from the disability community on the ground and try to bring that in. So we're going above the legal requirements and we're looking at how we can make the thing work instead of just being legally compliant.
Yeah, and
Okay.
legally compliant, I often think about it as a fine place to start, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. Like, it's somewhere for people, right? A baseline, and that
A
usually
guide,
is
right?
what starts the collaboration exactly, and gets
Mhm.
people to want to collaborate and reach out to other experts or people with lived experiences or people like you, like who know what they're doing. So that's great. But how do you? What's your attitude and way of getting people to think beyond that? Because sometimes it can be hard. Like sometimes you're
Oh,
facing
yeah.
just literally that resistance of people being like, but we are doing it. We're doing the bare minimum. We're reaching legal requirements. We're good.
Or it means a change.
So, yeah, that's a very good question. And I actually have a couple of ways to do it. So the first one is verbal. So everyone's been to school, hopefully, and people know the concept of letter grades. So I always say, if you're compliant and you're only compliant, that's a C minus.
Oh,
You
that's
don't
very
want to have a
nice.
C minus, because if your kid comes home from school and says, "Hey mom, hey dad, I got C minus on my test," you're not gonna be like, "Good job, Joey."
No,
Like
we're
you're gonna be
proud.
like, "We're proud of your C minus." You're not gonna do
Yeah.
that. You're gonna say, "Well, why didn't you get a B or an A?" And that's the approach that we got to have. And that's what I do verbally. But in person, what I tend to do is I tend to use my body and use everything I have. So, for example, if your sink is too high and you can't roll a wheelchair, wheelchair's knees underneath the sink to use it, I will use my body to show, like, okay, someone would have to do this to use it. Does that look comfortable or not? The answer is
Hmm.
no. Or sometimes what I would do is I would take a photo with my phone of, let's say, for example, steps that don't have tactile indicators or contrasted strips. I would show that to them. I'd be like, okay, the camera is not biased, unlike our brains. Can you
Right.
see each step? And if the answer is no, then that kind of opens their minds. And what is so cool is when we have a client who's just an employee assigned to tag along with me. But when I start explaining and showing what the issues are, they go from bored and uninterested to saying, "Oh my God, I got to tell my manager what I learned." And I think that's the
Yeah,
coolest aspect of this job.
you
Ah,
do point out very
um,
engaging ways of making people understand. Like you're
yeah,
part
Gotta
of the
be.
and
process.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you're showing, like you said, yourself or examples. So when you talk about feedback from the community, and we are talking in this case a huge, massive project, people have probably gone to the Saddle Dome and they're basing some of the old experience from dealing with that facility and saying, "Well, I don't want that in there." Or what this is what I would say, Arnold. But overall, when it comes to what you hear from the community, how do you kind of couch that on the different projects you work on as a consultant in not just this capacity, but overall, you have your experience, you can use your body, but with your education, your information and data you pick up across the board, which is an ongoing process, I'm sure. How do you field a lot of that and work with that? Or do you ever feel, if you're talking about somebody, in our case with a sight impairment, they understand you're coming from an area of knowledge?
Yeah, I think just being a very well-rounded person, because I was one of those kids in school who had no idea what to do. It's like I was a jack of all trades, master of none. And
Right.
in a weird way, that became an advantage because I have my own experiences, but because I have a graphic design background, I want things to look good. But because my family also has an engineering background, I'm like, okay, it has to look good, it has to work. And I think a lot of people who are in the disability community, they want to be heard, but at the same time, there's this barrier where people think accessibility has to look clunky and really awkward. And I find that if I can blend those in, that works way better. Now, if I talk to someone, with, let's say, for example, someone who has low vision, what I want to do is I want to know what I'm doing, like, is it correct? Is it what you would like? Because I have like imposter syndrome, like you wouldn't believe.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And in a
I
way,
hear you.
that's good because,
Yes.
like, you're questioning yourself. You don't think that you're right all the time. You're actually wondering if you're
Mm-hmm.
right. And I find that is probably kind of helpful. And also, I find that many people are just the opposite extreme, where they think only of their own disability and their
Yes.
own accessibility
Yes.
concerns. And
Yeah.
I'm someone who doesn't want to be like that. So I think just keeping an open mind and just questioning yourself every step of the way, you'll keep learning that way, and then you'll do
It's a
better.
humbling thing, and I think that's the way to do it, Arnold,
Yeah.
and I think we feel we have to know everything, have all the answers, and that is not possible. Rummy and I have both in our lives done different consulting, and Rummy, I think that's really the way to go at it.
For sure, because actually, it's part of the approach if you even think about it strategically. You don't want people to feel like you don't want people to feel like they're doing something wrong either, right? And there's a balance to strike around all of this, but you really don't want to alienate people and organizations, big or small. And there are a lot of companies we can point at and say, like, you guys suck at accessibility. Let's do better, please. But honestly, I think a lot of us, the more successful kind of understanding of consulting comes with, hey, we're all just trying to work on something together. Let's improve. Let's do it in phases. And that's why one of the first questions I asked you was, when did these people approach you to talk about accessibility at this event center? Because that is part of the conversation always, right? It's part of the
That's
biggest
right.
complaint for people with disabilities, where we're like, you didn't come to us on time or early enough, or this could have been so much better. The final product, it would be so much better if you came to us earlier.
Instead of the afterthought.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you have any,
And
Arnold, do you have any direct comparisons between what the Calgary Event Center is right now, or as where it's going, compared to the Saddle Dome, which is what it's replacing?
yeah, sure. So I have to confess, I've actually never been to Alberta, let alone Calgary. And despite living in Canada since '92, the furthest east I've ever been in Canada is Vernon, BC.
Okay.
However, I am a big hockey fan, and I have
Ah,
heard many reports about how the Saddle Dome is having issues. And yeah, so what's going to happen is basically some of the issues with the old Saddle Dome are going to be addressed. For example, there are these stairs that go up into the Saddle Dome before you actually go in. Now, in the winter, that's so dangerous. So the new
Yeah.
Saddle Dome, or the new arena, I should say, there's going to be a step-free entrance, and when you go in, you're actually already at the upper concourse of the lower bowl. So the players are actually technically playing underground, but because you're halfway up the building already, like you don't have to go up in the snow. The other thing that is rectified as well is here in Vancouver, we have Rogers Arena, which has accessible seating, but it doesn't have that many. So the arena in Calgary is going to have more accessible seating that I can count on both of my hands in terms of sections. And that is a
beautiful.
conscious, yeah, that's a conscious decision. And my favorite team also has that. My favorite team is in California, and they have like multiple sections. You can choose where you want to sit, and I think that was a big component of our planning. And
I
there's
think.
also going to be, yeah, oh yeah,
Oh no,
there's
you
going
go
to
ahead.
be
Finish that, and I'll jump in there.
sure. Yeah, there's also going to be considerations of other non-mobility, non-physical
Yes.
disabilities too. I can't talk too much about that, but
Hmm.
there will be some consideration about that.
And that's kind of where I was just going to go, because I know, as a person with vision loss, who people have told me in their situations, that I need something that's accessible to me to get to the bathroom, maybe to get food, or just see the ice a little better. Well, I don't want to have to pay the full price to get up close. Can you have some seats that are, at least a few that are, you can consider giving at a certain price? There are certain things like that people say, listen, economically, if I could see, I wouldn't be needing to sit next to the ice like the. But do you have some that are in that discounted? Just think about the different needs. Arnold, you've got logos there that we're going to discuss here. These are some photos you've got. Do you mind doing some describing of these as we put them up?
Sure.
Okay, let's give a shot here. I'll hand it over to you here. What do we see first?
Maybe the logo first, the Spectrum Mobility logo.
Sorry, guys, I don't have that here for you.
Oh,
No,
okay, guys. No,
never mind. We
we'll
have
pass on
nothing.
that. We'll pass on
Actually,
that
it's on my
today,
shirt.
Arnold.
It's on my
Well,
shirt. You can kind of see it.
Well,
your
tell
logo
us,
on your shirt.
describe the logo
Tell us
for us,
about
and
it.
we'll put it in
Yeah.
post.
Yeah, sure. So the logo is spectrum ability in text, and it has a little wave. And the idea behind that logo and that name is that ability is not black and white. It's not yes or no. It's always in a spectrum. Like you have ambulatory wheelchair
Right.
users.
Hmm.
Most people who are blind aren't totally blind. Many people who are deaf are not totally deaf. And I think that's something that people get wrong about disability. So it
Yes.
was a conscious decision of mine to emphasize that you're not just thinking about one group or another. You're thinking about one group and another.
Very
That's
nice. Okay,
really
we have it
great,
up on the
man.
screen as well
Wow.
for people to check out. But that's great, Arnold. And honestly, like, this was a really insightful chat. We know
Hmm.
the kind of long, like how long it takes and how hard it is to go through infrastructure and venue accessibility and change a lot of things and talk to a lot of people and convincing, right? There's so much convincing going on, but clearly this is a huge project for you and the gang. So thanks for coming on and telling us about it. When are they set to open? Do you have any ideas?
2027.
All
And
right.
I'm imagining it'll be closer to the end of 2027 just because of how the hockey season works,
Yeah. Yeah,
like
exactly.
September,
And
October.
hopefully before then we get, a lot more insight and the public can get pumped about this new accessibility or accessible venue.
What a cool
I hope
project to
so
work
too.
on, Arnold.
Oh, yeah, it was cool.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, keep posted. Thank you so much and all the best.
Thank you.
We were speaking with Arnold Cheng, and he was giving us a glimpse into the accessible design at Calgary's Event Centre, also called Scotia Place. I'm not sure if they're just working around with different names or not, but he is from Spectrum Abilities, and you can just Google that for more information. I have been to
Sounds
Calgary,
like
but I feel like we can go again soon.
Scotia is going to the naming rights. So just
Yeah,
like in Toronto,
they're just working on that,
right?
right?
So or like what he
Slash,
mentioned about Rogers Center in Vancouver. We'll take the naming
yeah.
rights for 10 years and whatever. So people are kind of phasing that in. I like the spectrum thing. I do, because how many times do you find we get into the, one size doesn't fit all discussion with people?
Mm-hmm. That's fair, and I guess, like Arnold was saying in the conversation, you don't know everything. Even if you represent a particular disability, and even if you understand where you are in the spectrum, you just don't, right? You still don't represent everyone like you. Like, I have a best
Mm-mm.
friend that I grew up with, Sarah. We have the exact same eye condition, exact same diagnosis, exact same good eye, bad eye. And, there's so many comparisons and notes that we take and make with each other as we go through life. But there are so many differences in perspective and experience, and it just um I've known her for like 20 years and we're
Yeah.
still understanding each other.
It's interesting you say that, because you and I come from a different era, and vision wise, your eyesight is similar to what mine was at your
Yeah.
age. However, there are times I get confused because you're better with screens, because you can
Mm,
look at them, you can utilize more of your vision in that aspect, where I stop and say, well, hold on a second, man. I didn't have an iPhone to look
you
at
didn't.
when I
Right.
was your age.
Exactly.
So to know what I could or couldn't do, that it's almost impossible. I'd have to liken it to something else, or you looking
For
over
sure.
at your screen right there to see yourself and me and our guests on your monitor, where I sit back and compare myself now. Well, I couldn't do that. Oh, but hold it. Maybe
Mhm.
at, the age of 25 or 30, I probably could have, because I certainly sat back and watched my, big ass TV in front of me, and totally was comfortable with that. So
Yeah.
it is very
But it's
much
like, did you
interesting, and
grow
not.
up
Go ahead.
being told that you're able to use vision substitution better than vision enhancement, right? Like, a lot of people
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
using braille and screen readers from the get-go now. So you're not necessarily testing out your vision to see if
No.
you can use
In the same
zoom
way,
or high
and it's
contrast.
again, and again, that's like saying that a jeweler has better vision than somebody else with equal vision. He just knows he's looking for something different. It's just like when
Yes.
we talk about losing your vision, I can say, well, no, but I can still see a bit. Well, how much of that is in my head, because I know, oh, well, I'm in this location, this is here, that's here, so I can see those
You're
things. That
familiar.
that really doesn't do it until I'm taken outside and, hey, where the heck, or in another place. There's so much that's pieced together by logic, by
Mhm.
what we do and the way we do it. Somebody who has vision loss and losing it, they learn different ways to compensate. So it's amazing, and I love that Arnold, when they're talking about this is the thing. Otherwise, accessibility at first has been just black and white. We need to put a ramp here, and that's it. Well, that'll help someone vision impaired. They don't have to
Black
trip
and
over
white,
stairs.
basic, whatever you
That's
wanna
what they
call
would
it.
do.
Yeah.
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 If you want to give us a call, folks, 1-866 509 4545, 1-866-509-4545. Want to have a quick chat before we bring JJ on? Quincy Jones, dead at the age of 91. He distinguished himself over the course of a 70-year career as a musician, band leader, composer, arranger, and producer. He leaves behind, of course, as he passed away Sunday night in Los Angeles, Rashida Jones, his wife, and 7 children. One of the things I want to start quickly, Rum, is we learned about now with this knowledge of his career and the various people he dealt with. What got him into music was when he was running with Chicago street gangs, and he broke into a rec center, saw a piano, and that's what started his love of music and wanting that desire to learn so many different instruments.
That is wild. It's always so interesting to me to learn about the initial foray for people into music or whatever the creative arts is, because we know them as big as they are now, right? Especially
Hmm.
at the obituary stage, we're just like, wow, we praise you because you were incredible, a mogul. But then when you start to think about, and especially when you hear it from family members, right, moms and dads and siblings,
Oh yeah,
of these
yes.
artists, right, and creators, and they tell you about the first little bit or when they knew, and I no one's an exception to that.
Mm-mm. Quincy would say that break in, running with the gang, seeing that piano saved his life. People like Frank Sinatra, who he worked
Yeah.
with and played with, actually, they became best friends. He would refer to him as Q. He gave Will Smith his first acting gig. I mean, not even just music wise, which we know Will Smith does, but he got him out there acting. Ray Charles, he worked with. Michael Jackson was part of that, creating the Thriller soundtrack, which we know last week got a lot of airplay, of course,
Mhm.
the title song, and probably roped Vincent Price in on that too. I've always said that was one of my dad's absolute favorite Michael Jackson songs. Just thought it was just the coolest. And Ramya, last year we talked about a really important documentary that came out on Netflix. This is the story of We Are the World, the greatest night in pop. A really wonderful piece. I haven't had a chance to see this thing, but pretty tremendous as we learned so much about the conflicts of the night, who was in, who wasn't, what changes happened, and what cool relationships started as people made a song all together, all these artists pulled together by Quincy
Yeah.
to really help the world.
Yeah, he's got his he had his fingers in so many incredible projects, I guess. And just like, the vast amount of work he did with black people, with black Americans, with artists, actors, musicians, everything and anything. Like the scene is so grateful for Quincy Jones. And when you talked about Will Smith and like Will Smith talked about performing for Quincy in his house at a party he was invited to, like very last minute, to audition. Essentially, it was the audition for Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It was
Yes.
so comical and so much anxiety for Will, who's like, I don't even know what I'm doing. And they just kept saying, like, be yourself. You'll be fine. And he's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's Quincy Jones. Like, what am I supposed to do for him?
Serve
It's
the
great.
damn hors d'oeuvres, boy. Get back there.
Yeah. I wonder if he was intimidating at that point. I don't know.
I bet. Oh, I can
For a young
imagine.
guy,
And then
yeah.
so incredible and so many stories, a 70-year career, so many people we know that just absolutely adored not just working with him, but the person, the man himself, and what a loss. JJ Hunt joining
Mhm.
us. JJ, you know of this man, Quincy Jones. I'm sure you have a
Yeah.
thought or two. We welcome you to the program, and we have so much to talk about with you, especially travel. But let's take a moment as you rejoin us here on Kelly and Company, your thoughts with the loss of Quincy Jones.
Yeah, hey guys. I was thinking about when you mentioned the Netflix documentary. I watched that not too long ago, and of course that was my era. I remember when We Are the World came out, and so to rewatch that was not only super nostalgic to watch all these old artists that I love, these the artists of my childhood, singers,
Mhm.
performers, but to also watch the way they built that song, the mechanics of building
Mm,
a piece of music that's kind of a piece of choral music. The chorus happens to be of the most famous people, the most popular singers in the world, which just
yeah.
adds to it. So you're not just taking a series of voices that are looking to come together in some sort of generic choir sound. You want to bring out this voice and you want to bring out that voice. And by the way, everyone's got an ego bigger than the room. Like, how do you do that? You get Quincy Jones involved. That's how you do it,
Yes.
right? Like, you need someone that big who's got a personal relationship, whom everyone in the room looks up to. That's going to be your Quincy Jones. I mean,
Wow.
a fantastic documentary, and yeah, a really cool life. Yeah,
Wow.
geez, a hip cat for 70 years. How do you not only like stay
Mm.
relevant, but stay cool for 70 years? That's something.
And you think about him telling everybody, "Come on, guys, cut it out. Lionel, get back into place." Stevie, yes, yes, and some you guys. A few. What was it? We heard Stevie Wonder and Ray needing to guide the other to the bathroom. I'll show you where it is. Like that. Like
Yeah,
this, just the
exactly,
support, like a
exactly.
bunch of kids carrying on. How powerful!
And then
Oh,
teaching each other, like, how do you get, well, we got to get Bob Dylan to say, Bob Dylan's freaking out. We got to get Bob Dylan to sound like Bob Dylan. Who can help him? And then they got to pull people in, and, people are crashing in on themselves. You got like people like Huey Lewis, who's like, how did I get here? Lined up with some of the greatest voices of his time. I mean, just a wild
oh,
documentary and a fun one. I'm not sure if it's described on Netflix, but the voices are so iconic. Once you tag them all, it's just this beautiful symphony of speaking and singing voices. Yeah, a
Mm.
fun
yeah.
a fun
I'm
a
pretty
fun
sure it's
project.
described. Yeah, and
Is
Diana
it?
Ross
Yeah.
didn't want to leave, right? She didn't want to leave.
No.
I think she broke down crying at the end. And I'm like, "What's the matter?
Oh.
I don't want it to be over."
Yeah. I wouldn't want to
Wow.
leave either. I mean,
No.
I just got to do a show
What?
recently. I don't get to be live in theater very much these days, and I was part of a production, and I was kind of the same. I'm just a describer. I'm supposed to be hiding up in the in the booth. And when the show was over, I came down, sat right in the middle of the empty theater, and just watched all the actors talk to each other, and I just
Aw.
soaked it all up. I just loved every
Yeah.
minute of it.
That's
So
the
yeah.
worst thing when a show run comes to an end.
Oh
I remember a lot of my theater buddies, we would say we overlap projects so that you don't have to go through the day after, which is
yeah.
just horrible. What an empty film. And you get this bunch of people you're working with, you're so used to. Oh, man. Anyway, we'll get on that another time. And thanks, JJ,
Wait,
for
aren't you going to
sharing that
shout
with
out
us.
the
Thanks,
show,
Ron.
JJ? What
Oh, I
empty
will
theater did you
indeed.
sit in?
Oh my God. That was the Rocky Horror Picture Show presented by the
Oh, good.
Disability Collective, and it was phenomenal. It was an all deaf
Yeah, it
shadow
sounded like it.
cast. Oh
Yes.
man, it was
Your
a
notes were
blast.
wonderful. We played a bit of them here on the show when Amy was on the
Oh,
other
I
day and
have
had a
been
really
sharing the
wonderful
heck
discussion.
out of that audio. Are you
Yeah.
kidding
Yeah,
me? It
It was
is
so
that's
so
really
great.
tremendous.
entertaining.
And I
Oh,
Again,
really
man.
any time of year.
appreciated the Disability Collective. We did the pre-show notes. We pre-recorded them so that folks could listen in advance and save the time for being in the theater so they could be social. And then the Disability Collective was fully in agreement with me, like, let's release these publicly. So it's not just for folks
Mm-hmm.
who bought a ticket. Anyone can download the podcast and hear the full show notes. Like, kudos to the Disability Collective for saying, let's just share. I love that
Yep.
about them. They're
Uh-huh.
so
Yep.
cool.
No gatekeeping
JJ, we
here.
got 8 minutes, man. We got to move into this
All right.
because we brought you on to reflect a bit of Halloween. And of course, being on the road sometimes means you're away for places times a year like Halloween. You're a former
Yeah.
theater kid, as we just were discussing. So I bet you're one of those adults who still gets kind of dressed up at Halloween. And how many Halloweens have you had to miss being on the road?
Yeah, it's
Aw.
hard, when you're traveling. Most of the time, days come and go, and one day, any day on the road is better than almost any other day at home. But Halloween comes along, a holiday comes along, and you think, oh, geez, I wish, this would be a great day to be back at home just for one day so I could dress up with my friends and, go collect candy or whatever it is, have a party. And so I've been away a couple of times, 2 times in particular that I remember, kind of one as a solo backpacker when I was in my early 20s, and then more recently as a parent, as a dad traveling with kids. And so kind of missing Halloween in those two different situations was
Mm.
yeah, it was really different. It was really different. As a kid, like when I was a 20-year-old, I was in Ireland for Halloween one year. And if I had been smart, I would have gone out and explored. I mean, Ireland, there's kind of like the history of Halloween starts
Yeah.
in Ireland, but I wasn't thinking about that. I was a 20-year-old. I was in the youth hostel, and that's what I was thinking about, was hanging out in the youth hostel. So it was this beautiful old Irish, I think it must have been an old Irish institutional building. So probably had a pretty sad and horrific past, but it was a grand old stone building, this beautiful like basement where the kitchen was, would have been the servants' kitchen, and all of these backpackers from all around the world hanging out in the basement, cooking a meal together, and we all are sharing stories about Halloween from back home. Here's what Halloween looks like, in Sweden, and here's what Halloween looks like, in North Carolina, and here's what Halloween looks like in Toronto. And it was amazing to have that kind of, the North American kids, we were the kind of the heroes of the day on that one, because everyone wanted to know what it was like to actually have Halloween like in the movies. Like, really? Like, you go door to door, like, because everyone knows what Halloween looks like from E.T. or whatever
Right.
TV show.
Yes.
And so we got to be able to tell those stories of here's what it's like. And then some people tried to either buy or make the candy from their home. Like, oh, here's what the candy's like in Italy when we give out candy door to door. And they would try and make it using whatever they could find in the local Tesco or whatever. It was great. It was really fun. But it was all about being in the hostel and hanging out with other travelers in that particular
That's
experience.
amazing. Oh my goodness. Now, in that experience, but you have one that conversely, Mexico.
Yeah. That's it. So when I was traveling with kids, this was only just before the pandemic. We had a couple of school age kids, and every day we would try and go to a park because you got to get the kids running around. And so we were in this beautiful park, Mexico City, and a woman came up and just started chatting with us. She was there with her kids. She wanted to practice her English clearly, and she said, "What are you doing, for Halloween tomorrow night?" And we said, "Oh, I don't know. Is Halloween really celebrated? We figured it would be Day of the Dead. We thought it would be a few days from now." She said, no.
Right.
We do Halloween too. She said, you know what? Come to my house for Halloween. I live in a condo just across the way. Come to my house. So we pulled whatever costumes we could find out of our suitcases, because you don't have much. I went as a lumberjack because I had a plaid shirt and a beard. And we had already bought a couple of souvenir, lucha wrestling masks. So my kids went as luchadors. And we show up at this really high-end upscale condo. And the condo association was having a Halloween party inside. They had a blow-up castle. They had piñatas. They had, instead of having, like, their buffet was a taco stand. So they had like a taco maker come in and cut like El Pastor for everyone. And then the kids traveled as a group, not one by one through the building. This like mass of 30 kids, all in crazy costumes, going door to door, yelling, "Queremos Halloween, queremos Halloween," meaning we want Halloween, we want Halloween. And they would just go as a pack from door to door, swarm everyone's
So instead of
condo
trick or
with-
treat, it's we want Halloween.
we want
And then
Halloween.
they just rifle through everyone's bowl of
Everyone's
candy. Can you
stuff-
imagine? And it's gone.
in a minute, and then the whole pack moves on to the next house. It was wild. Such a fun way to experience
Gone in 60
Halloween.
seconds.
It kind of
Oh, yeah,
sounds scary.
seriously.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It sounds a little bit
Massive
mobbish.
kids.
But at
It-
least
it-
you
oh,
know
it
all the
had that
kids. You can
feeling.
identify them. Rumya's the one that
Well, that's
spilled my
it.
drink.
Yeah, but you can't catch me. Like, I'm already gone.
Well, yeah, but they know for tomorrow. They know where you live.
It's because you're all in the same building, right? They know that kid.
Oh,
I know
my.
that kid.
Wild.
It was
How
really just lovely of
noisy.
them to invite us into their condo celebration. It was so kind of them. Yeah.
As intimidating as the experience sounds, it's still lovely that they would invite
oh
you.
God.
So
Yeah.
the other stuff was in the lobby, I take it, right? The castle and so on, all the piñata stuff.
Yeah. Well, they had like a party room, the classic condo party room, except this party
Nice.
room was on the 20th floor. And so the bouncy castle, and I remember thinking, it was mostly littler kids. My kids were a little older, and my one kid's a baseball player. And so they gave him the bat to hit the piñata. And I'm like, and they said, you're the guest, you should go first. And I had to
Aw.
pull him aside and whisper, like,
Don't disintegrate
destroy
it.
it on the first swing. Like, there are
Yes,
25-year-olds
have some fun.
lined up behind
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's right.
That
Psych
is
them
bad
all out,
manners.
boy. Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh man. That is cool.
Dude,
Which
the
one?
stuff
Which
sounds
one?
like foreign but relatable. Like it's still Halloween that's kind of bringing it together, even in the Irish youth hostel. But is it
Yeah.
comfortable for you to take part when you go like into these kinds of things and engage?
Yeah, you gotta have. It's a little bit of a bit of learning when to hang back and learning when to step forward, right? Not
Sure.
unlike the swinging the bat at the pinata. You want to
Yeah.
participate. You're being welcomed in, which is super generous. So as a traveler, I always want to be respectful and grateful in those moments. But it is very easy to also dominate a space. Like this was a
Yeah.
room full of folks from Mexico. I'm not going to insist they all speak English, even though a lot of them did. I don't want to be the center of attention. I don't want to make it about me, about my family, about us. So, in those ways, you kind of got to figure out, how do I participate, but how do I not
Mm.
take over? How do I be
Yeah.
gracious and accept the hospitality and not insist upon
But
things
not be one
being
of
done the way I
those
want it?
tourists.
Oh, I don't want to
Those
be one of
people.
those. We all know
Those.
those tourists.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But what a way to be richer and learn so many different things, JJ, being on the road. And you wait till someone says, "Hey, come on, guys, come on over and
Yeah.
experience." Which Halloween would you
Mm.
feel the most that you took away from? I don't want to say better. Which experience?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I always learn. Not only, when I travel with my family, I learned because I was learning, because I continue to. Just because I'm an old graybeard doesn't mean I'm not still learning, but also learning because I'm experiencing the world through my kids. So I'm thinking not only about my experiences, I'm thinking about theirs, and I'm trying to interpret, like, how are my kids experiencing this? How are
Mm-hmm.
people experiencing
Yeah.
my kids?
Yes.
And so for me, traveling with a family, traveling with kids is, you kind of get it twice over, right? You get your own experiences, and you're invited to think about your kids' experiences too.
Yeah.
Wow, so important. Talk about perspective and what you take away. JJ, Ramya, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. Really wonderful talks.
Fun
Cheers,
show.
guys.
JJ will join us next month on the program as we get these travel descriptions in, and we'll try to give him as much time. So we shortchanged him a little bit on the program. Ramya, you're back with me on Wednesday. I'm back here with the show tomorrow, and on the program, we'll be checking in with the host of AMI's Parasport Nation. Alex Smythe joins us to see what this week they have for us on their two shows. Retired Philadelphia Eagles player Jason Kels doubles down after sharing TMI shower confession. Oh, good grief. Nazreen Abdul-Majid has the scoop on this subject, whether you may want to hear it or probably not. We're back tomorrow. Please follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Kelly & Co. AMI. Talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly & Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.